Day yet. So if you are joining in on a replay, I'm still asking the question, how are you today? This is Gina with Now What with Gina, where I answer questions, offer tips, and say stupid shit that I'm sure to regret later at some point about sobriety, addiction, recovery. If you have a question, please feel free to let me know. I will answer as soon as I get the questions as soon as in the next video. Or sometimes I can answer in this video, the one I'm doing, depending on what the question is. I want to give you as much information as possible, so I am reserving the right to hold off the questions. But please, please, please ask them because I want to know what you want to know, and I can't do that unless you ask. So today's topic, I'm jumping right in just because today's topic is seek first to understand and then to be understood. If you are new to Now What with Gina, what I have been doing is going through Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits, I can put it in there, of highly effective people. And I did the first 2 chapters to get a like a warm up, and then I have gone through, I think this is the 5th habit, and I have gone through these habits and applying them to sobriety, to recovery, the things that I think will help you once you're in recovery or to kind of get to recovery. The first time I read this book, what did I do? I was not in recovery. I was drinking, and I remember reading it thinking, just every bit of it thinking, oh yeah, if I do this, I will have to quit drinking. If in order to apply this rule, I got to quit drinking, and okay, this habit, or I'm doing this because I'm drinking, and I put it down. I couldn't finish it. We have someone who's just joined. If you can say hi, I would really appreciate it. Depending on where you are, if I don't respond, it's because I don't have access to all the channel chats, but Facebook I do. So if you say hi there, I will say hi back. Anyways, so this week's the fifth habit. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. And if you just joined, I was talking about my experience first reading Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And hi Joe, you're on Facebook, so I am here as well. If you're in recovery, or if you have a family member who is in recovery, you want to help them, you're in the perfect place, because I talk about recovery, I talk about sobriety, and I answer questions. So if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. If I can answer it now, I will, probably at the end of the show. If I cannot answer it, I will put it on the agenda to put it in another show. Sometimes do that because I want to make sure I have all the responses possible, best response for you. So anyways, I am talking about the 7 habits of highly effective people. I'm going through a habit a week. We are on the 5th week. If you want to look at previous habits, I have them all on YouTube. I don't. Oh, hey, yes, you are. Yes, thank you for joining. I won't announce what you just said because I'm trying to hold on to anonymity. But yeah. So actually, it's in a chat, so I guess there's really not much anonymity. But hello, I'm glad to see you. And I'm trying to place your face, so I do know you, but I'm not sure which face. I'll check it out later. Anyway, so the 5th habit: seek first to understand, then to be understood. This is so important. Because golly, our communication skills really suck. Let's just get real. Vince and we've taken classes on communication. He's had therapy and discussed I have discussed communication and worked with communication with counselors and with therapists, and I still do it wrong. I'm not great at it. He'll say something to me, and I'm thinking in my head, you're doing it all wrong. Or I know I say stuff to him because he tells me you're doing it all wrong. We don't quite do it like that, but communication is so hard. Now imagine adding in the effects of drugs and alcohol, where our heads are spinning and we don't know, what we're saying, or we're the family member of someone and we're trying to understand them, but they're not talking straight, or they're talking perfectly straight, but we don't want to know what they're saying because, one of my notes here is that I'm going to back up to understand is scary because then we have to be vulnerable to changing our minds or admitting we are wrong. So sometimes we just don't want to hear what they're saying. Anyways, so that's why this is important to recovery. Obviously, it's important to everything. A lack of communication skills means that we can't communicate with our bosses properly to get raises or promotions as we want. We can't communicate with our parents, our children. If you have a child, a teenager, and you are trying to connect with them, but you're doing it all wrong and in reality pushing them away. So it is so important in all aspects of our lives, but it is, I think, one of the most important things for recovery. When I first started drinking, I remember the feeling no one understands me. No one understands me. And part of it's my fault. I was very isolated. I was thinking that no one cared to hear what I said anyway. So I wasn't even trying to communicate. But part of it's because I didn't know how, and they didn't know how to hear. And so, anyways, I think today's lesson, or today's talk on the fifth habit, seek first to understand, then to be understood, is a good one. It's one we all need to hear. So I'm backing up. I want to, because I kind of jumped in real fast. Today's show, I've been doing this for a couple weeks now. Today's show is sponsored by communication. I found a couple quotes in here that I want to throw in. It's a warm up, I guess, an idea to get us started. The most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said. Hearing what isn't said. And when we talk about empathic listening, that Stephen Covey talks about, you'll know exactly what I meant. What isn't said a lot of times is the feelings that come with the communication. If you're talking about something that's hurtful or painful, there's feelings there. And that's not said often. I don't say I'm really hurt often. Or we might say it, and if you don't hear it, if you're someone listening and you're not hearing it, you're missing probably one of the most important parts of the communication. That was Peter Drucker who said that, but I found two. I wasn't going to do two, but I found two. Any problem, big or small, within a family always seems to start with bad communication. Someone isn't listening. And Emma Thompson said that. And yeah, I'm guilty. I'm guilty a lot of not listening, but it's frustrating also when someone isn't listening. So, anyway, Stephen Covey says that there are 5 levels of listening. And mostly what we're going to talk about today is the seek first to understand part of this. And that's part of 5 levels of listening. The first level is ignoring. You just flat out aren't hearing what the person's saying. There's pretend listening. Yeah. Perfect example of that. I'm trying to avoid names because I don't want to offend anyone, but I have a friend who talks and talks and talks. And oh my God, just shut up a second so I can be part of this conversation. And what I learned a long time ago is that I actually did this pretend listening. I pretend listened because it was no good to try and get a two-way conversation going. I literally set the phone down. This was back when there were landlines, and that was all we had. I set the phone down and cooked dinner, and this person was before speakerphone, so I really couldn't hear anything. And once every so often I would pick up the phone and go, set it down and go cook some more dinner, pick up the phone. I agree. And she didn't know any different because she was not caring to communicate. She was just talking, but I pretend listened. And if you find yourself in a conversation where you're just nodding occasionally, you're pretend listening. Then there's selective listening, or you only hear what you want to hear. Attentive listening, that is where you hear every word that is being said. However, you're not really digesting or understanding the communication. And then there's empathic listening. And that's what Stephen Covey is talking about in this chapter, how to do empathic listening. And I want to focus on that because I think that's probably the most useful, the most where you're actually going to start learning that. Then there's another listening that he doesn't talk about, but that Vince and I talk about. Vince really says it a lot to me, that people do, and he does it, I do it, we all do it. We're not perfect listeners, and that is listening to find a response, listening to form an opinion. Same thing, listening to argue. I hear your conversation, and the first thing I'm going to do is find a way to rebut it or to respond to it. But that doesn't mean I heard what you said. Um, I'm going to step in here and talk about something that's important to me is compassionate witnessing. I'm going to say it right. Kristen Neff talks about it. She researched compassionate listening, or I don't know if she used the term compassionate witness, but she does a lot of research on compassion, self-compassion, self. I'm trying to get this right, but she talks about listening, and a lot of times, all we need to recover from some of the trauma we go through is for someone to listen and to feel heard. You know, so she talks about compassionate listening in that way, and empathic listening helps us to do that. Let's see. So most of us listen with our own eyes, our own history. When we listen to connect, I do all the time. I listen to a person's story or experiences, and I looked for ways to connect, and I do that by drawing on my own experience. And I always thought that that was a great way to listen. But I, after reading Stephen Covey's fifth habit, mm, I'm questioning it. I'm kind of thinking maybe I need to do a little less of that. I still think it's a good way to connect, but there's a lot of problems with it, and I'm seeing that in reading this book. What he says is that when we listen with our own eyes, with our own history, well, he doesn't say this, but it's a kind of an egotistical way to listen, like I'm more important than you. And it can, I can see when I do that, how it can come out that way, how it does come out that way. I'm not doing it with the intent of being egotistical. I'm doing it with the intent of understanding. But the empathic listening would be much more important. I'm just going to kind of tease this empathic listening. Well, hold on. What the hell is empathic listening? Let's just tease it. Oh, wow. So he says when we listen through our own eyes, what ends up coming out is probing, evaluating, advising, and interpreting. Probing. So, son, why did you do that? I don't understand. Why, tell me more about that. And it becomes this barrage, if you continue to probe, of interrogation. Evaluating is putting judgment in. Well, why did you do that? Why did you do that would be probing. Why did you do that? Why would you do something so stupid? That's evaluating. Then there also comes this idea of advice. Well, here's how you fix that. Here's what you should do next. And Kristen Neff says that to be a compassionate witness, you're not giving advice. In fact, all you're doing is listening without judgment, without evaluation, without probing, without offering advice. You're just listening. And they don't even, oftentimes, I know when I want to be understood, but sometimes it's not even important that you understand me. Sometimes it's simply important that I speak it. That's it. I speak it. Um, it allows me to get the shame out. And by the way, if you're dealing with shame, yes, the more often you talk about the shame and the problem that's bothering you, the shame starts to disappear. So when you're listening, try listening without your history. Without your history. Don't probe the situation, don't evaluate, interpret it. They don't want tips. Sometimes they do, and they'll ask you, what do I do about this? But unless they ask, maybe it's better that we don't. All right. So here's the tease. I've been teasing about empathic listening. This is listening with the heart, connecting to the way they are feeling, as opposed to literally what they are saying. I saw, moving my notes down, I saw an episode of The Good Doctor this morning that I thought was a really good example of empathic listening, and I didn't do it on purpose. So in this episode of The Good Doctor, I don't know if you're watching, but there is one doctor. He's gay. He's a Hasidic Jew. I think that's what he is. Hasidic Jew, who left his family because he's gay, because he couldn't be himself around his family. And his dad comes into the hospital and he says, I think it was lung cancer and I'm dying. And his dad really, I think all he really wanted was to connect with his son, to kind of, they hadn't talked in years because he rejected him. And I think it was just a matter of, I'm dying and I just want to make this connection. I want to be at peace with this separation that we've had. And at one point, the son talks to the mom and they build that connection. I remember what it was. Well, they build the connection. They go through a ceremony, and I just started crying. I guess that's what I really want to get to, is that I just started crying, not because of anything that was said. As you can tell, I'm having trouble getting back to that, but not because of anything that was said, but because I connected to the feelings that were being displayed in the show, the sadness, the hurt, the loss of all the years of people not talking to each other because one person was one way and the other people were another way. That is empathic listening, connecting to the feelings that the person is going through. What if we did that? What if our families, who don't understand our addictions, who don't understand why we would, get drunk to a blackout state, or why we feel the need to drink on a daily basis, or why we are using, intravenous drugs. I'm not saying this right, but the words are falling out. They're not with me right now. But what if our family could understand the pain we feel, instead of, I don't understand why you're using the drugs. I mean, like, can't you just be like normal people? I mean, really, don't you see how you ruin your life? Just stop. What if they did that? Or they just said simply, wow, I got notes here for that one. I can see that this is very confusing to you. I feel that you want to stop using the drugs, but that you also get a lot of benefit from it. You seem conflicted. It feels like this is making you angry, instead of, aren't you angry? Or, well, just fix this. Or, I see that this feels hopeless to you. I have an activity suggestion for you to try. And that is to try, next time you're in a disagreement with a person, try stopping the disagreement and just letting them talk and listening with empathy. Try to hear or feel the emotions they're going. And then when you do, respond instead of telling them back what they just said, which is one thing you can do, and it's certainly better than trying to fix the problem or trying to judge them because of it. Instead of relaying back what they just said, try relaying back how you think they feel. If you think they are feeling angry and you say, it feels like this is making you angry, guess what you're going to get? You're either going to get an agreement, yes, it's making me very angry, and then you might get a further discussion of why it's making them angry, or you might get, no, it's not making me angry, I feel more sad than that. And then a discussion on why it makes them sad. Imagine how much more you would understand what that person is going through. Imagine if you're the person with the drug problems, how much it would make you feel to be understood. Yeah, I'd like to know in the comments, if you're watching this as a replay, I'm still paying attention, by the way, to the comments, but I'd like to know in the comments what you would rather, to be heard or to be understood. I don't know if that makes sense. How would that make you feel to know that your loved one, who doesn't get what you're going through in addiction, doesn't have any idea what it means to be dependent on alcohol or to crave the drug, what it would feel to you if suddenly they said, okay, I see you're very hurt. That's it. You know, I remember having a disagreement. I'm not going to say with who. Again, these are people I know, and I don't want to hurt any feelings. And it's not about that at all. It's just, you know, I guess being authentic. But I don't want to hurt feelings. But I had an ongoing, was angry with someone for years because they had harmed me, not intentionally. And all I wanted them to do was say, "Oh, wow, I understand that this really has hurt you." And every time I tried to talk to this person about this situation, what I got was, "But I didn't know any better, but I was doing the best I could." But that was just the situation of the time. And I always felt, um, I'm having trouble connecting because, yeah, I always felt like if I could just hear the words, I hear that you're in pain because of this, that this would change so much of the connection that I had with this person. Well, um, I've heard those words, and it absolutely did change the connection I had with this person. I'm like, the resentment is gone. And I'm not saying it's going to be gone for you. And I'm not saying it will be gone for the loved one you're trying to connect with through empathic listening. I'm saying for me, it was all that I needed to feel understood. So I see that a couple people have just joined. If you are new here, this is Now What with Jeanna, and I'm talking about the fifth habit of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I've translated it to 7 Habits of Successfully Sober People. And this one is the fifth habit, and we're talking about seek first to understand, then to be understood. And I'm really focusing on the topic of empathic listening, or listening to feel what the person you are communicating with is feeling, and understanding through feeling. And I'm gonna do a quick recap to see if I missed anything. Here we go. When you are trying to listen empathically and you're not sure you understand the message, you can do one of two things. You can restate the content. Here's what you just said, or this is the way I understand what you just said, and give them a second to say yes or to clarify, because sometimes that's what they need, is to clarify. But here's an answer, here's an option that we don't often do, and that is identify the feeling that they get. I hear that you are feeling angry. I hear that you're confused. I hear that you are not um not driving with it. I don't know. If you identify and restate the feeling, you're often going to get an agreement or a reclarification of the feeling. More importantly, if you are trying to restate the feeling, the person that you are hearing is going to feel understood. Even if you got it wrong, they're going to feel like you're trying, and they're going to feel like they're heard. And again, when this has happened to me in the past, it has changed everything, including how people understand why I drank. So, what I drank, why I drank, why I drank, why I drank. Try it. When we have a class in Now Sober Academy that well, actually our first 6 sessions of Now Sober Academy is focused on the family of loved ones in recovery. And a lot of that has to do with communications. And there's a lot of communication styles we talk about, and activities we talk about, motivational interviewing, and we use surf and oars to try and understand and to teach communication skills. And it is just so important for everyone in recovery to do that. If you don't know about Now Sober Academy, it is a membership program where we try to help both the family members and the person struggling with substance use disorder to work together, or work one-on-one until they can work together to better their own skills so that they can better help their loved ones or themselves. So check that out if you got a chance. I haven't quite opened the doors yet, but it's like on the cusp of happening. We just keep finding that there's one more thing to do. So redoing, yep, I think I'm done. I my notes one more time. Stop, listen to the response. Just listen. I guess that's it. The last thing I want to say is I have a YouTube channel. Now what? Not now with Gina. The YouTube channel is Now Sober. You Google that, I'm sure you'll find it. You might have to look for the green and do the green in the coloring a lot, but look for the green and subscribe to the channel. I put everything that I do on video on that channel, and so you'll get all 7 habits. I've still got 2 more to record, but I have the first, this one included, the first 5 habits on that channel on YouTube. Now what with Gina? Now what? Now sober. Now sober. Now sober. That's the word. Now sober. And so I have the first 5. I also have the introduction part, a couple points from the before the 5 habits in there. And we have a podcast, Back Porch Chats, which we're going to rebrand and turn into a Now Sober podcast. And so we have those on there, and I have a bunch of little tips and stuff. Check it out. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything in the future. I'm going to keep going with that. And I want to say real quick, Hal Chetley joined. Hi, Hal. Thank you for joining Now What with Gina. I am about done. But if you want to go back, I was just saying all these go on my YouTube channel, and I do keep them in Instagram and other channels for a while, as long as they keep them there. And I think that's about it for today on Now What with Gina. I come in here every Tuesday at 2, or should I say most Tuesdays at 2. Sometimes I have to skip a Tuesday, but I will continue to come in every Tuesday until I get the 7 habits done. Next week's habit is, what did I do? Next week's habit is synergize. And I have to be honest, I'm not sure what that means. I think it has something to do with motivation, but I wrote that someplace. But we're going to go ahead and read through that. I'm going to read through that, and then I'm going to come in and talk about it next week. Synergize. I think it has to do with motivation, but let's see. I'm curious. If you guys want to know, kind of throw a hint in there for us, please go ahead and do it in the comments. I'm listening and responding as I get them. And I guess that's it for today. I am going to, Vince had a search and rescue training today, and I'm curious to see how that went for him. So I'm going to go ahead and join him and say goodbye to you guys. And you have a wonderful week. I'll see you next Tuesday at 2 on Now What with Gina. Thanks. Bye.